dig it, sucker?
Welcome. This is the final round of the Lucha Royale series from the West Box Court. We're so glad you could join us. It's been a great ride. We're loving it and hope you are too. On today's show, we go over Kayfabe, then and now. Also, what does it mean to be an independent contractor in today's pro wrestling industry? And are companies like the WWE being socially responsible with it? Also, some of our favorite storylines, some of these that made us fans of the wrestlers we'll be talking about. And also, for those who don't know yet, what is New Japan Wrestling? We'll get into all of it. Let's go.
It's so funny that wrestling is always going to blur that line in kayfabe, which is kayfabe is the fictional storytelling of the storyline. So they want to blur that line and make it so real. They want to keep it kayfabe in the sense where they want to keep it storyline, but then that line is easily blurred nowadays, where they want wrestlers on social media to kind of keep the storyline going, but also be real. Like that's their whole gimmick now. We're in this, what is this called now? Reality era. Mm-hmm. Like we had the whole attitude era, the ruthless aggression era, and now we're in the quote unquote reality era. And now the latest controversy is Vince McMahon sent out an edict to his talent that he doesn't want them on third-party platforms like Twitch, YouTube. What else are they?
Just any social media.
Any third party.
Yeah, Cameo. They don't want to do any
Cameo
recordings.
And it's all because they want to protect the storyline. But it's hurting the wrestlers' income, right? Because Cameo, what was it? So one of the wrestlers is making it's Paige over on Twitch. Who's making like $60,000 like in the first few days. So that's big money that he's taking away from his talent now, and he's trying to say he's trying to say that he owns not only their likeness and their stage name, but their real names also. Which, I mean, come on, that's really messed up.
Yeah, that's bull. To me, that's a real big bull. And also, it's one of those things where kayfabe, who other than right now the Fiend, that is living that, pretty much Bray Wyatt's living that. Nobody else is doing it. Everybody's. That's what the whole thing about. It's the reality era. Everybody wants to know the people behind the people, and nobody minds it anymore. It before it made sense. It was like the Undertaker. It was scary, which I think he's honestly like the last kayfabe person, like the longest running, and probably going to be one of the last, pretty much after Bray Wyatt, probably, but. Yeah. Everybody else, they want to know their backstories. That's why everybody always follows people, all the wrestling fans on Twitter. They have their YouTubes. They have everything. So why? How is that hurting WWE? It doesn't hurt them at all whatsoever. Their storylines aren't being hurt. If there's like a huge rival, like there's a huge feud going on with them, people still believe it because people are still watching the show. Not everybody's on Twitter. Not everybody's watching their YouTube. To me, it doesn't make sense.
Do you think it's probably better? Social media can be used to help enlighten a storyline in that sense. Where like if you keep going back and forth on social, then it makes them. It's just another avenue to promote the storyline, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's where Vince McMahon's coming from on this, but it's not right that he's trying to say I own also your real name too, because then you could have two burner accounts, right? Like you have your actual gimmick Twitter account. And then your real Twitter account. That would be the only workaround that I could see, right?
I don't even think he's even able to do that. I mean, I'm surprised they haven't pushed back on it. Which I'm sure he's banking on the fact that these wrestlers are all like dumb enough to not push back on it, because technically it's like, dude, like they're independent contractors. You know, when I drove for Uber, I could drive for Lyft too. You know, Uber couldn't tell me I can't drive for Lyft. I could do that. I have the right to do that. And I feel like I don't know how they're playing it out behind the scenes. I mean, I know we saw the news report, but it always felt to me like it doesn't feel like that's something he can do. And I would hope that a lot of these wrestlers or performers are not dumb enough to think that like their hands are now tied, because they kind of aren't. And I think if anything, it's like I said on the last pod that on the last sports one that we did on West Box on episode 13, that it's never what you say, it's how you say it. And the fact of the matter is like, just like when I do music production, you know, I go by Draga Beats and my music profile is Draga Beats. And ideally what I should be posting is me making beats on there if I want to grow my profile, if I want to grow my audience. And that has to do with, that's kind of like my gimmick, if you want to think of it in wrestling terms. So it's never what you say, it's how you say it. So if you were to say it the right way to these, the talent, and saying, hey, like, you know, you work here and would you want to grow your audience, like on Twitter, Twitch, whatever, we highly suggest that you still keep it within the character that you're doing here, because this is, you know, if you make it believable, then, you know, obviously it's going to grow you, and then who knows where you can go from there, versus this whole like, hey, you're not allowed to use a name because we're scared that people are going to find out you're not who you are. And, you know, to Rick's point about Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, I did hear him on ESPN, right? He got interviewed on ESPN as himself, or whatever he is now.
Well, yeah,
and
it's kayfabe.
And it's funny to see that he is being interviewed at his house. You see him on his chair with his like family and all that, and you see that on social media. And he's being interviewed, and he's really answering these questions honestly, like as if he's himself. But then he does these little things in between, like the laugh, the way he laughs, and the way he laughs is like the way the Bray Wyatt Fiend character laughs. And then he talks about, like, you know, he says things in a way that he's trying to be very friendly to the other wrestlers and all that in ESPN interview. So at some point for me, I'm like, is this the real Bray Wyatt, or is this him being the Fiend character Bray Wyatt? I can't tell. But see, that's someone who worked it out, who figured out how to do both. And I think that's kind of what it is. But I think the way Vince McMahon went about it right now with this whole thing is just, I don't know, it just feels weird. Like, I don't feel like it's right. I think it's like a fear tactic type of thing. And I think you should know how to talk to your talent a lot better. I'm sure he's just used to treating his talent like trash anyways. But it's like, you know, we are in a different era now where things get called out. You have all this stuff coming out with cancel culture and, you know, rage culture and all that stuff. So you have to know how to come about this the right way. So yeah, it is weird. But I think that, I think you just got to know how to coach your talent the right way. That's all.
Well, I mentioned to Rick when this first happened, that this is the straw that's going to break the camel's back now, and that these workers now have to unionize. Like, this is it. Like, this is what they're going to rally around to be their rallying cry, to unionize now, because there's no more John Cena there to like stop it, because that's been the biggest face. There's no big face in their company right now that they could all band together now. I mean, the biggest face you could say is Roman Reigns. Yeah. And as long as they get him on board, then now's their chance to unionize. Because this has to be it. This is really messed up that a company, Vince McMahon, who's running this company, but he runs it as a big giant corporation. The fact that they don't have medical care for themselves, that they're all pensioned, it's not right. They have to be unionized. And this has to be it.
You can't own their names and own everything and then not take care of them when they need to be taken care of at the same time. That just seems very unfair. So, you know, it's ridiculous.
He's used to that, though. But that's the thing. When you saw all of his contracts, every time you hear about somebody signing a contract with them, and then you just read all these stipulations and all the fine prints, is like, oh, wow, I can't do this. I can't do that. Yeah. And then a lot of times, like, I barely started figuring out about the whole thing where they can add time because you got hurt and you're just sitting on the sidelines. I never thought that, oh, well, you know, when it's like August 10th is your last day. But I thought that's it, you know, August 10th is it. But the thing is, if you got hurt before that, they actually, it's like they put a freeze on your contract. Yeah. You still can't go anywhere else, but they put like a freeze on your contract, like the time, and go, oh, well, you know, you were out for those 6 months. So now we're going to add those 6 months after the point. And I'm like,
yeah, you still owe us those 6 months.
It's like, what the hell? What the hell's going on? That doesn't make sense, but it's always the wording on their contracts. And I don't know how their contracts look, but I can't imagine somebody overlooking that, or maybe they can because they're so excited that they're going into the WWE, because every wrestler's dream is to be into the WWE. It's you know, it's the thing. It's what everybody's fighting for. But I can't believe you would sell, in a way, your soul, because you're selling your name, you're selling your face, you're selling everything to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, that goes into a different conversation as to people who pursue wrestling, the kind of people that they are. And it's mostly people who, probably grew up in a rough background or something. I mean, you hear the stories. I mean, you've heard the Rock story. He always talks about $7 production. I only had $7 on my hand, or, and then eventually I made it out. So you get people who don't have this high education or high intellectual background to know when things are being said in the wrong way to them, that they're just like, okay, like, it's my opportunity, let me take it. Anyone want to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna jump in earlier but now that you just said what you just said, I was gonna say I don't understand what Vince McMahon's end game is here, because if he had done this 20 years ago, I mean, think about it. You just said the biggest name in the history of this company is The Rock. When you think about what that person is doing now, think about it. He's still he's referred to as everybody as The Rock. His kayfabe name. Think about that for a second. He's potentially going to be. There's rumors that he could even run for president. Guess what? He's probably going to run as Dwayne Johnson, aka The Rock.
Yeah,
The Rock, President The Rock.
So to take away that ability is that alone, his success story alone should be enough for any wrestler aspiring to get into the business to be like, whoa, hold up. You want to prevent me from potentially doing this, that, and this after my career is over? It's idiotic, So I don't see this holding up. I think it's just a classic Vince move where he's trying to get one over on his talent. He knows it won't hold up. But it's part of a bargaining plea. He's asking for this much so that in reality he can get this much. He knows he can't get the whole thing, but he's starting there so that it makes it seem like you only gave up some of your rights. Well, yeah, fuckers, you still gave up some of your rights though. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the big play here, is what it feels like.
Well, as it stands now, every talent who gets released or whose contract ends with WWE has this 90-day no compete clause, which means that means whenever they're done with WWE on X date, they can't start at their next company on American television for 90 days. For that, so that gives them that talent window to like kind of die down and lose steam from the last time they were on WWE television. Kind of gives the audience a chance to forget them. And that's in every contract. But what a lot of independent talent was doing when they were signing to WWE as a few years ago, they were keeping their original names. Most of them were. And that was the contract. I'm sure that was worked out in their contract. So whenever they get released from WWE, because they're kind of expecting it already at that point, that they could go back on the independent scene and still use that same name. So
so it's a branding thing.
But that's why
merch and all that,
and that's why I love WWE is making a concerted effort to go after not independent talent anymore, because they've kind of dried up that juice. But they're also going over people who were former NFL players, fitness models, and bodybuilders, because those people are just so happy to sign that WWE contract that they're going to sign away their name, likeness, and everything just to get into WWE and have another chance at a athletic career on television. And
all this happened thanks to the NWO. I mean, really, it really did. It was Kevin Nash. He couldn't go to WCW, or neither could Razor Ramon as Diesel or Razor Ramon.
You're right.
And Vince McMahon got fucked over by that, so that's where hence the Kane, aka Diesel number 2, was born about, because Vince only owned the rights to the character and the likeness of those characters.
You're right. You're completely right.
So here goes Kevin Nash to the competitor and Scott Hall. And they blow up over there, and Vince gets nothing of that. Do you see what I'm saying? So he's just trying to avoid that from happening again in the future. Now with AEW blowing up or all these other circuits starting to gain a little bit more
and it goes to the point that you had made earlier, Sonny, about how big The Rock is now. And I think a part of it is the fact that they don't want to see that happen again. Yeah. You know, it has to be WWE above everybody. Similar to how ESPN does their thing now, where ESPN doesn't let you do anything outside of ESPN. And, you know, but then you see all these other companies in sports that like hang out with each other. Like, you know, I see Big Cat from Barstool hanging out with Brian Russillo from The Ringer, and they do a pod together and stuff, and they can basically be in across platforms, but ESPN doesn't allow for that. And it has to be a ESPN above everybody. And I think that's why when you see a lot of these former ESPN guys like Colin Cowherd and Skip Bayless and all that leave, they tell you stories of like, yeah, like I wasn't allowed to do this. I couldn't talk to this person publicly and all that, but they have friends in those circles, and they come off very like kind of like spiteful for the brand. But then ESPN also feels like, well, they were getting too big for us to contain. And I think what they're trying to do now is they're trying to prevent. For as much as I think they love The Rock and they like to feel like, well, we kind of help build them up and all that, they also don't like the fact that he's doing everything he is doing now as The Rock, and Vince gets nothing of that. Right. You know, exactly. If you're talking about just a gimmick name, you know, so it's crazy. But I think that's what they're trying to prevent.
I don't think that Vince isn't getting anything out of it though, because if you look up Dwayne The Rock Johnson, as every kid is going to look up, the first thing that's going to pop out is his WWE legacy of what he's done. And so people are going to get eyes. You're going to still get eyes to the WWE, no matter where he goes, what he does. He's very connected. Yeah. He's like you said, he's one of the legends of WWE now. So there's no way that Vince isn't getting something out of it. I mean, he's not getting merch out of it, obviously. But the thing is, he's still getting eyes and ears, and everybody else that's doing Twitch, the YouTube, all their YouTube channels, everything, Cameo, they're still getting eyes and ears to the WWE. There's no way that it's not going back to the WWE. Maybe it's because he doesn't have control of how it's happening or what's actually gonna happen after that point. Maybe that's not what he likes, and going off of how much I've paid attention, that he doesn't like that at all. He likes he's the one that likes to have the string on the carrot. He's the one pulling up the carrot when you're trying to grab it. Mm-hmm. You know, and he's not the one in control of that, where it feels like he's the one that can't grab that carrot, then he doesn't like it. But
you think it was the Tony Schiavone cameo that really straw that broke the camel's back for him?
Oh yeah, the one I sent you. Oh man,
the very explicit Tony Schiavone one.
No, I was surprised by that.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Is I don't. Sometimes Vince is he's just trying to control a little too much. It's just I think he's just scared. Well, especially now, because before there was nobody else. He bought out WCW. He did, ECW is gone. There was nobody else. There was only overseas and indies. There was New Japan. There was All Japan. There was just the indies, PWG, ROH, and it was one of those things. Ring of Honor, it was one of those things where nothing was
Impact.
I keep on always forgetting about Impact. I'm sorry.
You and every other wrestling fan
and Impact or TNA. It's one of those things where it's just like there was nothing else. But now AEW showed up. And AEW has brought it to attention. Vince McMahon is showing, hey, we can do this, and we can do this better, and we can show you how to do it. Well, and he's just scared now.
The catalyst for AEW being a threat is the actual money that's behind it. I mean, because there's always been threats, like as you mentioned, the Ring of Honor, the Impact, all that. But the fact that AEW actually has pockets behind it, like has deep pockets behind it, because the Tony Khan and his family own the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Fulham FC over in the Premier League, that there's money behind them. It's not just they're not relying solely on the wrestling revenue, because if you talk to a lot of independent promoters, they don't make money. Wrestling doesn't really generate a lot of revenue for these promoters. It's going to be merch.
Yeah.
It's going to be travel. That's where they make their money. That's how WWE makes all their money is their road shows. But right now, I think it's all coming off their TV product, their TV contracts, because that's also another huge money revenue for them. And the AEW has a bit of revenue from a TV contract, but it's mainly the football and American football and football.
Isn't it Shahid Khan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Tony
Yeah,
Khan,
that's
his
dad,
son.
I think.
Yeah.
Tony Khan's the one that runs it.
So now there's an actual threat to your point. And you at the beginning, it's a great thing for wrestling fans to have a better product. But at the end of the day, it's these wrestlers have other choices or other avenues to make an income.
Yeah.
But when you take away the Twitch aspect, that's goes beyond the income level. It goes to the ethics, right? Like allow them to own their own freaking name. That's really messed up.
I'm surprised they don't have like a social media training team that can train them up on how to properly social media via their characters, so that way they don't have to feel, because it feels like such a move, like where they're just scared that, you know, they're gonna give up some stuff that they shouldn't, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it just comes off wrong. I'm like, dude, just teach them how to run social media properly and they'll be fine, you know. But again, that's all training, that's all work, and I don't know if they want to do that kind of work. I think they're so used to just you being good at the ring and being good at promos, and that's kind of like as much as we need you for, and that's what you got to do.
It's so weird because you can use social media to build up a wrestling storyline. To me, that comes to mind right now, because this is new wrestling storyline, is Enzo Amore and Tama Tonga using their social media to build up a wrestling storyline, because Enzo and Cass, who were with WWE for a while and were released, crashed a Ring of Honor New Japan product in Madison Square Garden, and it's very evident in that actual event that Tama Tonga did not like them being there, and it was because, you know, here's a shoot for you, Sonny. Tama Tonga had no idea this was going to happen.
Oh.
Legit did not know this was going to happen, because Ring of Honor was working with them, but it was a co-branded event between Ring of Honor and New Japan. And so Ring of Honor knows, but Tama Tonga is part of New Japan, doesn't know this is going to happen. He's out there working his match, sees these guys jump the railing, sees them start working with Ring of Honor talent, and he is pissed. He is visibly pissed on the ropes, like, what the hell? He's pointing at them like, get them the fuck out of here. What the hell's going on here? He would, if he could have gotten to them, he would have probably given them some shots.
Damn.
Legit.
Oh,
like
yeah.
a fan jumping up the railing.
Oh,
like,
man.
we've seen those YouTube videos when fans jump over the railings to wrestling shows. Doesn't end well for them.
Oh,
Never
hell no.
ends well.
No
Never ends
way,
well.
dude. It doesn't matter who's the heel or what, dude. He's getting popped by either or. It doesn't.
Kayfabe's getting broken.
Yeah, it goes real fast away.
That's where the real life likeness is happening, and they're gonna break kayfabe.
Oh yeah.
So that, and now they've been going back and forth because this is real heat apparently, and now that it's gone from real heat to like, hey, at the end of the day, you know what? We're workers. We might as well put on a show. And I think it was a Tama Tonga on the Chris Van Vliet show where he's like, you know what? When the price is right, I'll work with them. Like, let's see who's going to pay us. Because that's where it comes down to. Use social media together with wrestling storylines on TV and work them in unison. And I think that's where Vince McMahon's coming from, but he's going about it in a terrible way. And so let's get into storylines. What would you say is your favorite storyline that you've seen on WWE's product, Rick?
Right now, when, or like ever?
Ever.
It probably has to be Stone Cold Steve Austin versus the corporation. With
we get it. You're a Stone Cold.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, come on. Tell me how it wasn't it great every single time when Austin just made fun of freaking Vince McMahon. Every single time he go out there and just pretty much make him piss his pants with the gun. And then when he came out with the truck with the freaking beer truck and just slamming them with all it was great.
Yeah.
For me, it was always great. That was, to me, that was like one of the best storylines.
Donald, what would you say is your favorite storyline?
I was gonna say the Stone Cold.
See,
those
so
are
you
the
know
first
there's
one that
other
came up, too.
wrestlers besides Stone Cold guys.
yeah, there's The Rock.
I know, right?
Let's go with The Rock.
Yeah, and there's Shawn Michaels.
And then there's Shawn Michaels.
Sonny, I'll let Don. I'll let you think about it. For a while.
I got
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
I think Kane and Undertaker.
Oh, that was
okay.
actually pretty
Kane and
good,
Undertaker
yeah.
was an
That was a
awesome,
good-
like, it was borderline believable, man. Like, I remember watching it in real time and being like, is that really his brother? Like, I mean,
Well, because that's the first thing you hear when he comes out. Is like that's not his
Exactly.
brother Kane. Like
Yeah.
that's the first couple lines they say. So
gotta be.
you kind of
exactly.
yeah. So
Exactly.
yeah, I
The
completely
part
see it.
of Paul Bear being like the stepdad was a little like, what?
Yeah, that was
like,
Yeah.
that kind of broke it a little bit. But I think initially,
I like that. It was super gross.
but I think initially, just that storyline in itself was awesome. Like, up until that point, there was really nobody in the lineup that like you could think really, really could beat the Undertaker. You know what I mean? If he was on his game, so to speak, like you'd be like, "There's no way the Rock, Stone Cold, none of them want any heat with him." Like, if he would destroy them, and then here comes this dude Kane, and with the storyline that's just like, "Oh shit, there's somebody who might be better than this dude, or bigger, or more menacing." So I remember that storyline being like one of my favorites when it first happened.
Donald.
Damn, that was a good one too. Taker, not gonna lie. When you said it, it hit me. I'm like, damn, that was a good line. I remember when he first came in and how it made me feel like, dang, like it's crazy. He's like this guy that can take him on at least same size and everything. I would say, Rock versus Stone Cold was always cool to see just because of how big they were. And I think as fans, you've always wanted to see what a match between those two would look like. And it was really cool seeing it. I think they played, I forgot which WrestleMania they did together, right?
They did
did
3.
one.
They did 3 together.
They did 3?
We did a
forgot
trilogy.
which one it was,
I think you're
that
thinking about WrestleMania. I want to say it was 17, where
I
they
think
had
17.
the Limp Bizkit My Way intro package.
Yeah.
Iconic.
That's the one. Yeah. So no, I always thought it was cool, and I mean, just the way they set up the matches, because I think it was always like, I think rock bottom, and then he kicks out of it, and you're like, what the heck? And then Stone Cold's trying to do a stunner, and then the Rock kicks out of it, and then the Rock does the elbow, and it's like always like you're trying to figure out, like it always felt like when I watched an anime, and it would always be like the main character going against the boss, and the character does like their best move, and the boss still is up, and it doesn't defeat them. And I, as a fan, you're watching, you're like, what can they do to beat them? And now it feels like there's a bit of a mental edge to it. But man, they always sold out the match for sure. They always made you feel like this is what wrestling is supposed to be like, So yeah,
Don't knock the Yokozuna storyline.
Ooh, yeah,
That was a great one. The one where and then Lex Luger comes and he finally lifts him.
Yeah.
Like that whole build up to nobody could, because that was
Yeah.
another guy when he first came in. It was like, nobody's going to be able to get this guy down. Are you kidding me? And then Lex Luger, being the total, well, before in the WWF, what was his
the narcissist.
The narcissist. That's right. Being the guy to come and like finally lift him up. It was like, what?
It was like on a naval ship on 4th of July. It was all American.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Another one I liked, I think is because I used to like watch a lot of martial arts stuff growing up. Was Ken Shamrock versus
Blackman.
Steve Blackman.
Yeah.
Especially because they did have that one kind of what was it, the Lions Den match,
Oh,
where it felt like it was like the closest thing to the Octagon from UFC. And it was like the one time you could see them explore like the MMA world in the wrestling format. And I thought it was cool because they had the weapons, kendo, and I like that the weapons were very martial arts driven, kendo stick, nunchucks. And I was always a fan of Ken Shamrock just because I like the fact that he came from the UFC world, that he came from like a martial arts background. And I like Steve Blackman too because he was also a martial artist. So I thought it was just cool that they explored that for a bit, that they toyed with martial arts in the wrestling format. So,
I credit Ken Shamrock for informing me on what the UFC even was as a kid. Like, I had no idea that thing existed until Ken Shamrock was in the WWF, and I was like, "Where did he come from? The world's dangerous man? Why?" And then
the world's,
and then you find out
it's crazy.
Like,
and then he definitely had my favorite move, which was the ankle lock.
Oh yeah,
I always loved it when he did it, and I always felt like, man, that looked like the most painful thing you can do to someone in terms of like if you were to actually, especially because the announcer, I think it was Michael Cole or no Jim Ross at the time, and they would sell you and the announcer that like that he could possibly break this guy's ankle, and then I'd always thought like, man, if he did that guy can't walk for like a while. We'll have to be on crutches. And it made me believe that Shamrock was this world dangerous man because he could just break your ankle. And if he broke your ankle, you're going to be on crutches. And that sucks, you know? So I always thought that was cool.
Just don't hand Shamrock a mic.
Oh my gosh.
His promos were hot trash.
Anti-charisma.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, Donald, you made me touch on two different storylines that I really enjoyed. One, as a kid growing up, was the Ultimate Warrior Papa Shango storyline.
Yes!
Oh, yeah.
I believe that shit was real, dude.
Because the way you talk about Ken Shamrock, like, I believe he could break his ankle. Like, I believe Papa Shango could do voodoo.
Green blood.
And he was making Undertaker, making Ultimate Warrior vomit. Like, what's he gonna do? He can't wrestle now. He has him possessed. I don't know what he did to him.
The green blood, dude, coming down from his forehead.
Dude, I totally forgot about that one. Yeah,
I remember that and being like, I'm scared of this guy, only to find out that, that dude was, the pimp, the Godfather.
Later on,
the Godfather.
He came out with the hoe train.
Yeah, it was like, that's Papa Shango. Damn, he's come a long way.
And then he was a supreme fighting machine. He had 3 faces, just like Mick Foley.
4 phases. I mean, you count the Nation of Domination.
Well, yes,
run,
that's right.
You're
right.
He wasn't the Godfather yet, technically.
No.
So.
Yeah.
Oh man! But my favorite storyline, most recently, when you talked about anime and the false finishes, is something from New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that's Kenny Omega versus Kishiko Okada.
Oh man!
Oh my God! The build up for that.
That was
in
great.
Just winning G1 turn. Well, Kenny Omega, a Canadian in the Japanese in a Japanese league over there, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that journey from light heavyweight to heavyweight, and at that time being the leader of the Bullet Club, which is what we talked about before, one of the best factions. I remiss that not bringing up Bullet Club when we talked about great factions, because Bullet Club is what the NWO was. Bullet Club brought back and did a different twist to it, and brought it to a current fan base now, because Bullet Club was amazing. You'll see those shirts everywhere now. Bullet Club shirts everywhere. Hot Topic everywhere. And which is, if there's no Bullet Club, there's no AEW. There's no AEW to talk about right now. But for me, the Kenny Omega Okada storyline there, all paying off in just, what was it, 2 failed runs at the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, right, Rick? Do you remember? Was it 2 failed ones?
Failed runs.
1 60-minute draw. He wrestled at was it the Wrestle Kingdom match?
That was Wrestle Kingdom. I think it was.
They wrestled for Kenny Omega and Okada. Okada the champion, right? Mm-hmm. Okada was champion, I believe, was it for 2 straight years?
That I don't remember. I don't remember
he
was
one of the longest reigning.
He was one of the longest reigning, yeah. Because I think before that, it might have been Brock Lesnar.
Right. And a 60-minute draw. Think about that, Sonny. 60, just like the Iron Man match.
I was going to say, it's the Iron Man match, right?
But the difference between the 60-minute draw in the Iron Man match and this IWGP title match, the physicality behind it. Because New Japan matches, they smack each other with these slaps in the middle of a match. It's very anime-esque in the sense where, like, I've expended all my energy. I can't go anymore. We're like 40 minutes into a match. I can't go anymore. And then all of a sudden your opponent slaps you in the like a real slap to the face. Not like these wrestling fake wrestling stuff. These are like smacks to the face that are not being held back. These are not working slaps. These are real slaps. Shoot slaps.
Oh yeah.
And then all of a sudden you have to hit your opponent back with another shoot slap. And they do that to wake the crowd up as much as wake themselves up. Like, holy crap, these guys are about to get after it. And then they go with more high spots. 40 minutes into a match.
Damn.
This isn't like when I think back at that 60-minute match with Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. What was it? It was the super kick to the cameraman.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's one of the high spots there, and it was great technique throughout that 60 minutes. But these are physical 60 minutes here, and it was a draw. Kenny Omega, and you think that's it? That was his last chance at it, because it was. So he had to win G1 and then get the shot at Dominion, right?
Yeah, he had to win G1 to get to
Which
to do that.
G1?
And he was the first ever North American to win the G1.
The G1 tournament is a month-long tournament where you wrestle, what is it? 6 matches in a group, and then once you win that group, then you wrestle a final. It's kind of like almost like the World Cup. You have to win your group, then wrestle a final, and then you win. But if you lost in your group, the whoever you lost to in your group, they get to challenge you for your championship, like your championship opportunity. It's freaking nuts, the storylines that New Japan comes out with, because
because their win-loss actually count.
It matters.
That's the one thing. It mattered. Your win-loss ratio actually mattered. In WWE, you could have been a new person. You could have lost like 5 times, but if Vince McMahon wants you to win, you're going to win. You're going to get a title shot. Over there, no. You have to win. Yes, of course, everything is already premeditated. But the thing is, it made it more like, oh my God, he needs to win this one. Or like he lost a match with a man he shouldn't have lost. It's like, oh my God, why did he lose that match? And then I don't know, how is he going to get back those points to actually get to the freaking finals? Like, what the hell's going on? It just adds just like a lure, like just intensity. Yes, it's just like, oh my God, it's so great.
There's post-match interviews done behind the banner ads. This is very sports-like. They treat it like an actual sports. There's still photographers there at ringside. They actually cover it in the sports section in Japan too. So they treat it with this element of sport, knowing that it's a show. Yeah. So that's why when you talk about anime, it's like that's what New Japan is to me. It's like real life anime with wrestling. Like it's so awesome.
Yeah.
You guys are doing yourself a disservice if you're not watching New Japan Pro Wrestling. You should really be watching it.
New Japan's so much fun. It's just
how do you watch New Japan Wrestling?
You could watch it on AXS right now. It's still doing the New Japan, I think, and then New Japan World. They actually have their own website.
NJPWWorld.com. Sign up for that. 999 yen per month.
Jeez.
Which is equivalent to $10 a month.
Bucks? Yeah,
pretty much it's $10. But it's so much fun. It's such a different.
When do they
style.
go on?
When do you mean when they go on, dude?
When was the schedule? Like what's the TV schedule, or is it just like they just upload the episode and you watch it?
Well, they do pretty much like pay-per-view shows in the sense where like they do big events. Like Wrestle Kingdom is their WrestleMania. And it's every January 4th, no matter what day of the week it falls on. It's January 4th in the Tokyo Dome. And then there's this New Year Dash, which is like the Raw after WrestleMania, where they start building up the storylines for the following year, like throughout the year. Dominion is like their SummerSlam. Then you have the G1, which is that tournament for you to be able to challenge the World Heavyweight Champion,
which is starting
at the
up right
next
now.
Wrestle Kingdom, which is just about to get started.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's a month-long tournament. You wrestle. There's 2 groups, and you get 3 points. Was it 3 points for every win? 1 point for a draw, no points for a loss.
It's like soccer.
Yeah, and whoever has the most, whoever is the group winner, they wrestle each other in the final, and then that winner goes on to wrestle the champion in Tokyo Dome. Main event, the Tokyo Dome. But if you lost in your group, which you obviously will, they get to challenge the contract winner to that their contract for the championship at the Tokyo Dome, and it's all. Like it's predetermined, obviously, right? But it's treated like that sport. So you're more invested into it. You get invested in it for the show and the sport aspect of it too, which is a really fine balance.
Yeah.
So Sonny, do you want my login for NJPW World?
Hook it up.
You look like you're ready
I'm
for it.
down to give it a try.
I'm telling you, it's just gonna be so much difference you're gonna see. It's just it's different style of wrestling. How Mexican wrestling, lucha libre, is all high flying and a bunch of spots, and New Japan is just it's a lot more of a mental thing. It's where they're just hitting themselves. They're hitting each other. I mean, hard. Like there is not they're not holding back. It's like one of those things where you could tell in WWE is like, oh my God, he missed them entirely. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
He just sold it like he got hit, but he missed them entirely. There is no missing. It's just like a boot to the face is like, oh my God, it's just, he really got kicked in the face. It's like there was no, because with New Japan, it's always just been because how it started off, it was Inoki. It was Antonio Inoki. He wanted to make it real. He wanted to make wrestling and martial arts together. That's what he was, the whole thing. So they do real kicks. They do real, punches. They do all that stuff. Well, not as much as before,
Real.
but yeah. But it's still one of those things where when they're going to show the chops, when they're actually like, they're all both, like how Alex says, they're both tired and they're doing real hits. They're chopping at each other. They're punching each other. There's not a real thing. I mean, it's obviously just going to freaking,
Or
it's so
as
much
all
fun.
of our favorite wrestler all of our favorite wrestlers, Stone Cold Steve Austin would say, they working stiff.
Yeah, they were. It's a great style to see.
Wow, where I learned something new today. I definitely have to check out New Japan now. Alex and Rick really sold me on it. Hope you guys enjoyed this mini-series. I realize I haven't done the usual thing you hear from podcasters about subscribing, rating, and reviewing us, but it would really mean a lot to us if you did. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, follow us on Spotify, and subscribe to us on Google Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast feed. Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. I know Alex and Rick are revved up to chop it up again in 2021. Follow Sonny Hermano, our amazing co-host. He has another show called the Fox Crate Podcast. If you love music and culture, that's the show for you. Until next week, guys. Later.